Dive into the darkest corners of reality with Fear Spiral, where true horror stories come alive. From eerie late-night encounters to shadowy figures that watch from the edges of your vision, we bring spine-chilling, realistic tales that make you question what lurks in the silence. Subscribe if you dare and follow the spiral into fear, where every story feels like it could happen to you. The Shadow in the Parking Garage. I'm 24, a night shift nurse at one of the busiest hospitals downtown. I've been doing the night rounds for almost a year, which means I get used to exhaustion, fluorescent lighting, and that permanent buzz of tension in the ER. On a Friday, around 2:30 a.m., I finished a double shift. I was drained, my eyes heavy, and I just wanted to get home, climb into bed, and shut the world out. The hospital's underground parking garage is always unnerving at night. Long concrete ramps, dim fluorescent lights that flicker randomly, and the faint smell of oil and tires lingering in the cold, damp air. Usually it's empty at this hour, save for a handful of cars tucked into far corners. My own car was parked at the far end, almost at the exit ramp. As I descended the stairs, my shoes clanging on the concrete, I felt that familiar tension creep up my spine, the instinctive warning that something wasn't right. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just fatigue. But as I reached my car, I noticed a man leaning against a pillar several spaces away. Dark clothes, a hood pulled low over his face, hands tucked in his pockets. He didn't move, didn't even glance around. He was just watching me. My first thought was that he was a homeless person seeking shelter from the night, but there was a stiffness to his posture that felt deliberate, almost predatory. I hugged my coat tighter, fumbled with my keys, and forced myself to act normal. As I slid into the driver's seat, I heard it, a faint, deliberate tapping echoing through the garage, like someone dragging a fingernail along concrete. I froze. The tapping grew closer, slower, deliberate, matching my pulse. I glanced in the rearview mirror. His face was pale, partially hidden under the hood, but the way he tilted his head sent a chill down my spine. "Hey," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Do you need something?" No answer, only the echo of my own fear. I locked the doors and started the engine, my hands shaking so badly that the steering wheel felt slippery. The fluorescent lights flickered above, casting shadows that made the garage seem alive, shifting. I kept my eyes on him as I reversed slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. He didn't move closer, but every now and then his head would shift, following my every motion. I exited the garage and drove to the main road. My heartbeat was so loud I thought it might be audible outside. I checked my mirrors obsessively, no one. I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence, that fatigue was playing tricks on me. But when I got home and reviewed my apartment security footage, my stomach dropped. There he was, standing across the street, just staring at my door for nearly 5 minutes before walking away. The street was empty, quiet, the hum of distant traffic the only sound. I recognized the posture immediately, the same stiff, predatory stance I'd seen in the garage. That night, sleep was impossible. Every creak in the apartment sounded like him stepping inside. Every shadow seemed to stretch toward my bed. I checked all the locks repeatedly and kept my phone beside me, fingers hovering over the speed dial. Over the next week, I started noticing subtle things, footprints in the snow across from my apartment, shadows moving just at the edge of my vision, the occasional faint reflection of a pale face in a darkened window as I walked down the hall. No one ever approached me directly, never made contact. It was as if the stalking itself was the point. Then one night around 1:45 a.m. I went to the store. I parked my car in a brightly lit lot, somewhere I thought I'd be safe. As I walked back, I felt it again, that sense of being followed. I spun around, heart hammering. Empty parking lot. But when I looked back toward the street, I saw him standing by a lamppost, hooded, still watching, waiting. I never reported it to the police. There were no faces, no license plates, no identifiers. Just a shadow, always there when I wasn't expecting it. The tension gnawed at me for weeks. I stopped leaving the house after dark unless absolutely necessary. I installed extra cameras, motion lights, alarms. Nothing ever caught him. Nothing ever moved him. The last time I saw him was about a month later. I was leaving a late-night shift, exhausted as always. And as I walked to my car in the garage, I thought I saw him slip behind a pillar just out of reach. My breath caught. I ran, didn't look back, and drove home in a blind panic. Sometimes in the quiet hours of the night, I swear I feel his eyes on me, even inside my apartment. I know I'll never see him clearly. I don't know what he wants or why he chooses me. But I know he's there, a shadow lingering just beyond the lights, always watching. And I can't shake the feeling that one night, he might not stay in the shadows. The late-night delivery. I'm 19, living alone in a small dorm near campus. It was a quiet Thursday night around 1:15 a.m. I had stayed up late studying and honestly was starving. So I ordered a pizza, thinking it would be a simple, mundane transaction. A delivery, a tip, and back to my dorm room with my textbooks and notes. The lobby was almost completely silent when I went down to wait. A low hum from the vending machines and the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights were the only sounds. A draft slipped through the slightly cracked window, chilling my arms and making the papers in my backpack rustle. I hugged my hoodie tighter, glancing around. Nothing seemed out of place, yet an uneasy feeling prickled at the back of my neck. When the pizza arrived around 1:45 a.m., I smiled and reached for it. But that's when I saw him. A man, tall and thin, leaning against the wall at the far end of the hallway. Dark hoodie, jeans, hands tucked into his pockets. At first I thought he might be a late-night visitor or a fellow student. But something didn't feel right. He wasn't moving. He wasn't even breathing in a way that was noticeable. He just stood there staring at me. I forced a casual smile and said, "Hey, are you waiting for someone?" My voice sounded too loud in the silence. No answer. The hallway seemed to stretch farther, the shadows longer, as if the building itself had drawn a breath and was holding it. I grabbed the pizza and headed back upstairs, my footsteps echoing unnaturally loud. That's when I noticed it. Soft, deliberate footsteps following me from the stairwell. Slow, measured, in sync with mine, but just behind me. I froze for a moment, listening. The dorm is small, just 3 floors, and it shouldn't have been echoing this way. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Silence. Just the faint sound of someone breathing, low and controlled. My heart was hammering so loudly I could feel it in my ears. I bolted to my room, fumbling with the key card to unlock the door. My hands were shaking violently. I locked it behind me, slid the deadbolt, and leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath. And then I heard it. Scratching. Soft, deliberate, coming from somewhere outside my door. A fingernail against the wood? A key? I couldn't tell. My instinct screamed to call for help, but I didn't know who I could reach at this hour. I shouted, "Hey!" "Who's there?" The scratching stopped immediately. A silence so heavy filled the room I thought the walls themselves were pressing in. I sat on my bed, trembling, the pizza untouched on my desk. Every shadow in my room seemed to stretch toward me, dancing just beyond the edges of my vision. Around 3 a.m. I heard something else, whispering. Not words, just soft murmurs, almost like a low chant floating outside my window. The thin frost outside reflected the dim light of the street lamps, and in it, I thought I saw a figure standing just beyond the glass. I didn't dare open the curtains. Instead, I grabbed my phone and called campus security. I whispered what happened, my voice breaking with fear. They assured me someone would check the building, but by the time they arrived, there was nothing. No footprints, no one in the stairwells, no one hiding in the corners. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed on my bed, phone in hand, listening to every sound. The hum of the AC, the soft rattle of my radiator, the occasional creak of the building settling. But it wasn't just the normal dorm noises that made me shiver. It was the feeling of eyes on me, the heavy awareness of being watched. Over the next week, I noticed more signs. The first was subtle, small scratches on my doorframe that hadn't been there before. I chalked it up to the cold weather and the wood expanding, but deep down I knew better. Then I noticed footprints in the frost outside, far too small and delicate to belong to me. They always ended just short of my window, like someone testing the barrier, measuring their reach. One night, around 1:30 a.m., I was heating leftovers in the small microwave in the communal kitchen. The dorm was silent except for the low buzz of the refrigerator. I felt it again, the sudden prickling on my neck, the hair standing on end. I glanced toward the stairwell and froze. The same tall figure was at the far end, just standing there, motionless, staring at me. I yelped, dropped my plate, and ran back to my room. He didn't follow, didn't move, just waited. I started leaving small lights on, keeping my door locked, always listening for the faintest sound. The presence never attacked, never spoke. But I knew he was out there. Always out there, watching, waiting. Once I thought I'd escaped him. I went home for the weekend, my parents' house safe and warm. But even there, I couldn't shake the feeling. Driving back to campus on Sunday night, I kept catching glimpses in the rearview mirror. Shadows at the edge of the road, a hooded figure far off in the distance, always just out of reach. My heart raced, every nerve screaming that he was still following me, tracking me, waiting for me to return. Now, every night when I order food or come back to my dorm after late studying, I feel him. I feel the silent eyes watching my every movement. I lock my windows, my door, sometimes even block the vents. I leave the lights on, never let myself be alone in the hallway, and yet, sometimes just before I fall asleep, I hear it, soft scratching at my window, the low murmur of someone breathing outside. No one ever enters. No one ever speaks, but I know he's there, waiting, watching. And I don't know if I'll ever truly be alone again. Even now, as I type this at 2:30 a.m., I hear it, the softest creak from the stairwell outside my room. I keep telling myself it's nothing, that the building is settling. But deep down I know better, and I know somewhere just beyond the door he's out there, silent, patient, waiting. The man at the bus stop. I'm 28, a marketing analyst, and I take the same late-night bus home after working late shifts downtown. My office is about 45 minutes from my apartment, and I usually get home around midnight. That Thursday, I had stayed late to finish a campaign report, and I missed the last train, so I found myself waiting at the deserted bus stop on the edge of town around 11:50 p.m. The streetlights were dim, flickering intermittently, casting uneven pools of yellow light across the cracked pavement. A cold wind swept through the bare trees lining the road, making their branches scratch together like fingernails against a blackboard. I pulled my coat tighter, shivering, and tried to focus on the faint hum of traffic from the distant highway. The bus stop was isolated. No other passengers, no shops open, just the faint echo of my own footsteps as I paced, impatiently checking my watch. That's when I saw him. A man walking slowly toward the bus stop. His gait was deliberate, almost unnatural. He was tall, thin, wearing dark jeans and a hoodie pulled low over his head. I thought he was just another late-night commuter at first, but there was something about the way he moved that made my stomach twist. He didn't glance around. He didn't make eye contact. He just stared straight ahead, straight at me. I tried to dismiss it. My mind told me I was being paranoid, that maybe I was just tired imagining threats in the shadows. I kept pacing, pretending to check my phone, scrolling aimlessly through emails and messages to seem occupied. But I could feel it, the prickling at the back of my neck, the hair on my arm standing straight up. He was getting closer, maintaining the same distance, not walking past, not joining the bus stop shelter, just following my line of vision. I whispered, "Hey, are you waiting for the bus too?" My voice sounded ridiculously loud in the silence. He didn't answer. I swallowed hard and tried to focus on my breathing, slow and controlled. I told myself that once the bus arrived, I'd be safe. The bus finally appeared around 12:15 a.m., headlights cutting through the darkness like blades, fog rolling along the pavement in front of it. I let out a quiet sigh of relief and stepped forward. The man did the same. He didn't move past me, didn't scan the bus schedule. He just kept pace, remaining a few steps behind as if he knew exactly where I would be. I boarded the bus, choosing a seat halfway down, facing the aisle so I could see the entrance. My chest was tight, every muscle tense, every nerve screaming. And then I realized he got on too. He didn't pay, didn't swipe a card, just slipped past the driver, his hood still pulled low, his eyes fixed on me. I tried to keep my head down, pretending to scroll through my phone, but I could feel his gaze, heavy and unrelenting. Every time I glanced up, he was watching. No one else on the bus seemed to notice him. No one spoke to him. He was a shadow among the fluorescent glare, blending into the background, yet entirely focused on me. When the bus pulled away from the stop, I felt a sickening sense of dread. I fumbled with my bag, almost dropping my laptop, convinced he was going to do something, though I didn't know what. My hands shook uncontrollably, and I realized I was gripping the armrest so hard my knuckles were white. The bus ride felt endless. Every stop, every shadow outside the window made my heart pound. He didn't move from his seat, but I could see him leaning slightly, following me with his head, tilting it in a way that felt deliberate, unnerving. I tried to make small talk to the person next to me, anything to break the tension, but my voice cracked, and the words sounded hollow. When we finally reached my stop around 12:45 a.m., I grabbed my bag and moved quickly toward the door. My feet felt like lead, my pulse racing so fast I thought it might burst through my chest. I glanced back. He was still there, sitting a few rows behind, his hood shadowing his face. I swallowed, my throat dry, and bolted down the steps. I ran the few blocks to my apartment, the cold night air biting at my skin, my breath forming small clouds in the dim streetlight. Every step felt loud, echoing in the deserted streets. And then I heard it, footsteps behind me. Slow, measured, not matching my pace exactly, but deliberately following. I risked a glance. Empty street. I picked up the pace, sprinting the last stretch to my front door. My hands shook so violently I fumbled with my keys, almost dropping them. I finally slid the key into the lock, twisted, and slammed the door shut behind me, double locking it. My chest heaved. Sweat and cold combined to make me shiver uncontrollably. I stood there for a long time, listening. Silence. But the silence itself was unnerving, heavy and thick. I knew the footsteps hadn't been imaginary. I'd heard them clearly, deliberately. Whoever he was, he had been following me, tracking me, waiting for me to reach home. I never saw him again on the bus, but I started noticing other things. Shadows at the edge of my vision when walking home late, strange reflections in store windows, a feeling of being watched even in crowded streets. Sometimes when I walked past that bus stop, I swear I see him standing there in the same position, hood low, head tilted slightly, waiting. The worst part is the uncertainty. He never approached me directly, never tried to speak. He didn't attack. He just existed on the edges of my life, patient and silent. The feeling of being observed has lingered for months, and it's gotten worse at night, when the streets are empty and the wind rattles the bare branches of the trees lining my block. Sometimes, I think about what would have happened if I hadn't made it to my apartment in time, or if he had stepped closer when I was on the bus. My mind spins with possibilities, but none of them bring relief, only dread. Now I never take the last bus home. I plan my schedule meticulously, making sure I leave the office early, always with someone else. I carry pepper spray, even on short walks, and I keep my phone ready to call for help at a moment's notice. Still, the fear doesn't go away. Late at night, I lie awake, listening to the wind, imagining the faintest echo of footsteps, and I know, somewhere out there, he's waiting, watching, patient, silent. The last time I passed that bus stop, I saw him, just for a second, his figure outlined in the dim light. Hood low, head tilted in that same deliberate way. I didn't stop. I didn't look again, but I felt the weight of his gaze on me, like a shadow that stretches across the street, across time. And I know, one night, he might step closer. The houseguest who stayed too long. I'm 32, living alone in a small house on the outskirts of town. My home is quiet, tucked away on a narrow street lined with aging oaks. I like the solitude. Peaceful evenings with a book or some music, the occasional visit from friends. I've always been careful about who I let in, but about a month ago, a friend of a friend, Mark, asked if he could crash at my place. His car had broken down in the middle of nowhere, and I was convinced it would just be a night or two. He arrived around 7:30 p.m., polite, quiet, slightly awkward. Everything seemed fine. We ate takeout, watched a movie, and I went to bed around midnight, assuming he was sleeping in the guest room. I didn't think much of it, but that night around 2:30 a.m. I woke up to a sound that made my blood run cold. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate footsteps in the kitchen. My house is small, but I live alone, so every unexpected noise is amplified. I froze under my blanket, listening. The steps stopped briefly, replaced by low, slow breathing. Then I heard a soft chuckle, barely audible, almost a whisper, but enough to make my skin crawl. "Who's there?" I called, my voice shaking. Silence. I tried to convince myself it was Mark sleepwalking, but something about the sound didn't feel right. The chuckle had a cadence, a control, that no sleepwalker would have. I slipped out of bed, grabbing my phone as I moved toward the bedroom door. The house smelled faintly of Mark's cologne, mixed with the lingering aroma of the takeout from earlier. My heartbeat was hammering, each thump echoing in my ears. I crept down the hall, stopping at the guest room. The door was closed. I knocked lightly. "Mark, are you okay?" No response. I swallowed hard and inched toward the kitchen. The living room light was off, the moon casting pale shadows across the furniture. The footsteps had stopped, but the low chuckle came again. Closer this time, almost like it was coming from behind me. I spun around. Empty hallway. My pulse skyrocketed. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I was dreaming. But then I heard my name, soft, deliberate, from the living room. My stomach dropped. I whispered, "Mark?" No answer. I edged into the living room, heart hammering, and saw something that made me freeze in place. The guest room door was wide open. Mark's bed was empty, sheets rumpled as if someone had just slid out. My mind raced. I backed into the hallway, ready to call the police. My phone was in my hand, trembling. I dialed, whispering my address. While waiting for the dispatcher to answer, I thought I heard soft, almost imperceptible breathing behind me. I turned. Empty hallway. The operator instructed me to stay on the line and lock all doors. I did, double-checking each lock. But as I finished, I heard it, scraping, faint but deliberate, coming from the kitchen window. Someone was outside. A shadow moved past the frosted glass, just a blur, but enough for me to know I wasn't alone. I called Mark's phone. It went straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. My hands shook as I grabbed the nearest kitchen knife for protection. The scraping stopped, replaced by silence that felt heavier than the noise itself. I couldn't see through the darkness outside. I couldn't see anything beyond my own fear. Eventually, the police arrived. They searched the house, checked the yard, but found nothing. No one had been hiding. No footprints in the garden. No forced entry, nothing. They suggested I stay with a friend for the night. I did, but the dread followed me like a shadow. Mark never mentioned staying longer than planned, never explained why he had disappeared from the guest room. When I tried contacting him later, he didn't answer. My gut told me something wasn't right. The feeling of being watched lingered even when I wasn't alone. For the next few nights, I slept lightly, every creak of the house setting my nerves on edge. Around 2:30 a.m., I would wake to faint sounds. A floorboard creaking, the subtle scrape of a shoe on the hardwood, a whisper I couldn't place. I would check every room, every corner. Nothing. But I knew it wasn't nothing. One night I went to the bathroom, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow move across the hallway. I froze, my heart leapt into my throat. I turned sharply, knife raised, and there was nothing. Just the dim light of the moon spilling across the floor. I've taken precautions since then. Extra locks, motion sensor lights, cameras covering the front and back entrances. I make noise when I move at night, always leaving my phone within reach, and yet, sometimes when the wind blows just right and the house creaks, I swear I hear someone moving in rhythm with me, mirroring my steps, laughing softly when I'm not looking. The worst part is the ambiguity. Was it Mark? Was it someone else? Or was it just the house playing tricks on my mind? I don't know. I've learned to live with the fear. Every late-night visit to the kitchen, every creak in the hall makes me jump, makes my heart race. I know I can never be completely alone again. Even now, a month later, I sometimes wake at 2:30 a.m., convinced I hear footsteps outside the guest room. I check the locks, the windows, the doors. Everything is secure, but the feeling of being watched lingers, a cold, creeping presence that doesn't leave no matter what I do. And I know, deep down, that whoever, or whatever, was in my house that night could come back. They could be waiting, patient, silent, just beyond the light, watching. The late-night hiker, I'm not the kind of person who scares easily. I've been hiking alone for years, mostly around Washington State. Trails, backwoods, even a few overnight treks. The forest always felt like a place of calm for me, but there's one night I can't forget. It's been over 3 years now, and I still can't drive past the trailhead without my hands shaking on the steering wheel. It happened on the Cascade Loop, mid-autumn, just before the snow started to fall. I'd gotten off work late, around 7 p.m., and decided to drive out to the mountains for a quick night hike to clear my head. It was something I'd done dozens of times. Headphones in, flashlight on, the cool mountain air cutting through the silence. I wasn't planning on going far, maybe a mile or two up and back. By the time I parked, it was a little after 9:30 p.m. The trail was empty, which didn't surprise me. It's not a popular spot at night. The only light came from my flashlight beam and the faint sliver of moon hanging above the trees. I remember thinking how peaceful it was. Just the crunch of my boots on dirt. The distant hum of crickets and the smell of damp pine and soil. About half an hour in, I stopped for water near a small clearing where the trees opened just enough to see the night sky. I switched off my light and looked up. It was silent still, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. Then I heard something. A twig snapping behind me. I turned fast, flashlight back on, beam cutting through the dark. Nothing. Just trees and the faint mist creeping between them. My heart beat faster, but I tried to brush it off. Animals move through the woods all the time. Could have been a deer. Still, something felt different. The silence didn't return. It lingered, heavy and waiting. I started walking again, faster this time. Every few minutes, I'd glance over my shoulder. Once I thought I saw something, a shape between the trees, human-sized, standing still, watching. I stopped and called out, "Hey, who's there?" No answer. Just that dead silence again. That's when I noticed the smell, faint, metallic, almost like rust or old blood. It drifted through the cold air, sharp enough to sting my nose. I turned off my flashlight, crouched low, and listened. The wind had died completely. My breath came out in white clouds. And then, footsteps, slow, deliberate, on the trail behind me. Not animal footsteps, human ones. Boots on gravel. I stood up and yelled again, louder this time. "Hey, you're freaking me out!" The footsteps stopped. I stood there, gripping my flashlight so hard my hand ached. For maybe 10 seconds, nothing moved. Then from somewhere to my right, maybe 20 feet off the trail, I heard it. That same metallic sound, like someone dragging something heavy across rock. My throat went dry. I started backing away, keeping the light trained on where the sound had come from. That's when I saw it. A man, or what I thought was a man, standing half hidden behind a tree. He wasn't moving, just standing there facing me. His clothes were dark and his face, I could barely see it, but what I could made my stomach twist. His skin looked pale like ash, and there was something wrong with the way his head was tilted, slightly too far to one side. "Hey man," I said, trying to sound calm. "You okay?" No answer. He just stood there. Then he took one step forward, slow, deliberate. I turned and started walking fast down the trail, every instinct in me screaming to run, but my legs felt heavy. I didn't want to draw more attention. I clicked my flashlight off for a few seconds to see if he was following, but the second the light went out, I heard it again. The dragging sound, closer now, behind me. That was it. I started running. Branches whipped at my arms, my breath coming in sharp bursts. The forest blurred past in streaks of black and silver. I didn't dare look back at first, but I could hear him. His boots pounding the dirt, that horrible dragging sound following right behind like metal scraping the ground. When I finally did look, I saw him. The same dark figure, sprinting now faster than I thought possible, his arms jerking like a marionette. His head still tilted to the side. The light from my flashlight caught his face for a split second. Eyes wide, mouth open too far, like he was screaming silently. I don't know how long I ran. The trail felt endless. My chest burned and I could taste blood in my throat. I dropped my water bottle somewhere along the way, but I didn't care. I just wanted out. When I finally saw the trailhead lights through the trees, I nearly sobbed with relief. My car was the only one in the lot, the headlights still faintly glowing from when I'd locked it earlier. I sprinted the last few yards, jumped inside, and slammed the doors shut. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely fit the key into the ignition. As I turned the headlights on, something in the mirror caught my eye. Movement at the edge of the trail. I focused on it, heart pounding. He was there, standing at the tree line, facing my car. The headlights barely reached him, but I could see the glint of something in his hand. Maybe a metal pipe, maybe a blade. I didn't stay to find out. I threw the car in reverse, nearly skidding off the gravel lot before speeding down the road. I didn't stop until I reached the main highway about 20 minutes later. Even then, I pulled over, locked the doors, and sat there shaking, listening for any sound over the hum of the engine. The smell of rust still clung to my clothes. I called the police once I got signal again. They sent a ranger to check the area but found nothing. No footprints, no signs of anyone on the trail. The ranger said I probably saw a transient or a hiker playing a prank, but I know what I saw. The way that man moved wasn't normal. The way he chased me, it didn't feel human. For days after, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that pale face and heard that dragging sound echoing behind me. I stopped hiking alone completely. Even now, when I go out with friends, I can't stand being at the back of the group. The woods don't feel safe anymore. They don't feel natural. A few weeks after the incident, I went back once and in daylight, just to prove to myself that it was all in my head. I didn't go far, just to the first clearing. That's when I noticed something I hadn't before. Near a tree just off the trail was a shallow pit, maybe 2 feet wide, freshly dug. Inside were small bones, maybe animal, maybe not. And lying next to them was a piece of metal, a rusted hiking pole with something red smeared on the handle. I backed away slowly, heart racing. I didn't tell anyone about that part. Not the police, not my friends. Because some part of me knew that whatever I'd encountered that night, it wasn't over. Some things you just leave alone. Now every once in a while, I'll wake up around 3 a.m., the same time I must have reached my car that night. I'll look out my window and swear I see a figure standing just beyond the streetlight, still silent, head tilted slightly to the side, watching. And sometimes, I think I can smell it again. That faint metallic scent of rust and blood drifting through the cold air.